Hello, wonderful brothers and sisters. I am so glad to be back here again. And one thing is that as the world is actually grappling with a lot of things that are happening, more so economical conditions, and especially the war that is happening in Iran. That is what they say, Iran-Israel or Iran-American war. That there is that triple effect that is affecting other nations, and more so most of the nations that are dependent on the fuel from Middle East. You know, that fuel has to pass through one of the straits called the Straits of Hormuz, which actually it is fully controlled by the Iranians. And because of this war, trade has not been okay. Some of the ships have actually stalled. That is what we are hearing people say. And so many things are happening. And I listened to one of the professors in this country, one of the most prominent professors, and he was asking that if Africa has all these minerals, Africa has its own oil, you know, why should African countries be dependent on the oil or the petrol in Middle East when they can trade just amongst themselves, something like that? And I ended up realizing, wow, there's a lot behind this. There's a lot behind this because I heard recently Kenya discovered oil, and Uganda also discovered quite a mass of oil. We have oil in Darfur, that is in Sudan. We have oil in Nigeria, in fact, one of the largest producers of oil. And there is also oil in both Angola and Namibia. You know, this continent is so rich, but there are some of African countries that are being affected economically when something happens in the Middle East, because they are fully dependent on the oil from Middle East. Now the issue here is it a game or is it a setup? Or somebody is just trying to play us. You know, somebody is just trying to play his country or her countrymen. This is something that cannot be substantiated, but it is so ridiculous because a lot of citizens, especially in Kenya, are actually asking themselves, questioning, how does, you know, the war in Iran affect African countries, you know? And recently, there was a fuel hike. You know, fuel hike. Normally diesel is always reasonable in its prices, but now you find even diesel is actually, it has hiked, diesel. And diesel is one of the fuels that are fully depended upon by these heavy machineries. That is, a lot of industries, most of them, they use diesel, you know, to power some of their machines when there is a power outbreak. But now that diesel is up, what do you expect? A lot of things are going to be up. You know, a lot of things. The cost of living might become very unbearable to most Kenyans. I'm speaking specifically on Kenyans because I don't know what about other African nations. But on Kenyans, this thing is going to be tough to most people. And this is what happened. Let's just have a look.
Now, Kenyans are set to dig deeper into their pockets for basic goods and services following a sharp increase in fuel prices, a move expected to ripple across the different sectors. The rise significantly accelerating inflation for essential goods. As KTN's Daniel Kariuki now reports, experts have warned that the fuel price hikes will make the cost of living even more worse for many Kenyans.
The announcement by Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority (EPRA) on new fuel prices marked one of the most significant hikes in recent months. The move likely to affect transport, food distribution and production cost. Fuel, as the key driver of economic activity in the country, and any increase typically translates into higher prices for goods.
Maisha sasa imeanza kuwa ngumu sana.
Kutoka 166 mpaka ije 206. Kuongeza 40 bob kwa mafuta, hata serikali hapo taonaona inaumiza mwananchi kawaida.
With the transport costs forming a major component of supply chains, businesses are expected to pass on the additional cost to consumers, meaning that essentials such as food, household goods, and even services could soon become more expensive.
Cost of living has been a major issue of concern. Kenyans don't have jobs. Increasing fuel means that the transport cost is going to increase, therefore Kenyans are going to be overburdened.
Katika mambo ya manufacturing, tutakuwa tunaona hivi karibuni hata bei ya unga. Inflation figures katika hii mwezi wa April tutaweza kuona ya kwamba itaenda juu katika mwisho wa mwezi.
As farmers grapple with high input cost, the impact is likely to be felt in food prices in the coming months. Economists warn that the combined effect of rising fuel prices, persistent food inflation, and global economic uncertainty could deepen a financial strain for many Kenyans.
The biggest problem is that the salaries or the wages that we are paid will not go up. So the purchasing power of ordinary people who rarely have any savings is going to be affected disproportionately. On the macroeconomic level, I expect the price of commodities, the price of goods, the price of services to go up.
Already, transport sector is affected as online taxis claim the prices have not been adjusted, leaving them making losses.
We have a message to the application companies that we want to issue 7 days notice for them to adjust their prices going up, because we cannot operate with the current pricing model.
Calling upon the regulatory body, which is NTSA, to kindly look at these apps.
Our security haiko sawa. Mafuta ndo hiyo. We are carrying a lot of burdens. Hata tuwezane kuketa for our needs both at home, the wear and tears of our vehicles.
With fuel prices hike, Kenyans are worried of possible electricity prices hike. Energy Principal Secretary Alex Washira has, however, weighed in over the issue with an assurance to Kenyans. For now, households are left to navigate a tightening economic environment with little immediate relief in sight. Daniel Kariuki, KTN.
Yeah, that is the message for you, my dear wonderful brothers and sisters. Things are getting tougher. Things are becoming more and more unbearable. And at times I don't understand why. Because in the times of Uhuru Kenyatta, there was a situation like this, but there were subsidies whereby Uhuru Kenyatta, the president, used to put subsidies every now and then. But now here, I don't know how the geniuses of President William Samoei Ruto will do, given that now these effects will have a ripple effects, in different and in every sector, will be affected. Every sector will be affected. You can imagine how things are, and you find like over 60% of Kenyans are actually self-employed. It's only about 25% of Kenyans who are civil servants employed by the government, but the rest are self-employed. Some are really traders, and you find when you hike these things, it's also going to affect them in one way or the other, which means also our tables in our homes are going to be affected. Tables in our homes are going to be affected. So food is going to be very hard to come by. It will be very expensive. And already right now, quite a number of citizens in this country are living from hand to mouth. You're looking for what? From hand to mouth. There's nothing like you tell people to save and all that, because they don't have enough for them to save. They don't have enough for them to save. Every morning they wake up is to look for what they will eat, what they will put on the table. That is the rat race. That is the thing there. But now people don't understand, because you find fuel is expensive in this country, that is in Kenya. But when you go to other countries like Uganda, that is the neighboring countries, you find that their fuel is not expensive. Yet they use our ports in Mombasa, to clear their goods. Their fuel passes through the port of Mombasa. But when you go to Kampala, you find that fuel is not all that expensive as compared to Kenya. Likewise, also, you go to Tanzania, you find the same thing, and yet they are our neighboring countries. But what exactly is happening? There are times people just play with the figures of the fuel the way they want. Could this be just a clique of people trying to adjust, trying to see what Kenyans will say when we play around with the fuel and all that stuff? I don't know. I'm just trying to think loud. I'm trying to think loud, because the reason, when you ask, the reason they will tell you is that the prices of fuel have gone up because there is war in Iran. And I wonder, war in Iran, even in Iran itself, the fuel is not expensive as such. But they will tell you that is the reason. They will tell you because they think their citizens are fools to an extent that you can just lie to them. But they don't know this world is connected. This world is connected. Something small that happens in a certain part of the world, everybody will know over what is happening. And people are more enlightened nowadays. People are more enlightened. They can put their governments, put their government to account, But you'll find somebody who is still very Precambrian will still want to lie to people that we are facing this because of ABCD, And that is why we just need to pray. We need just to pray and ensure that we do all we can, so that if there be anything that is happening against the will of God, what happens is that person or those people must be put to order. Those people must be put to order, because right now, this country, it's very sensitive relative to the economical condition of people. What people are struggling with every now and then. At times you fail to understand what you need to deal with. Are you going to deal with food? Are you going to deal with the rent? Or are you going to deal with school fees? And at times you find the income that you earn is very limited. You cannot solve everything. Very limited. Even at times you don't have any. You don't have any income. You are hoping every morning when you wake up, you hope that something will happen, you will do something and somebody will pay you. It is not a guarantee. And then this is how somebody plays around with people's lives. It is not fair. It is not fair. And may the Lord check on these people. May they be checked so that they can realize that there are also other people suffering. Not because they should not just put their businesses ahead, but they should also think of other people who are just there struggling to survive. And when you do something like that, of what impact will it have with that small person on the ground? With that small person on the ground. You don't come out and start lying to people that the fuels have gone up because of a war that is happening somewhere. That is a big lie. And these are some of the things that at times you think you are so sad. Even when you preach in the pulpit, you look at a congregation that is so saddened. They are already going through a lot. And what message do you give them when they come to church? They want to hear something that can encourage them, something that can give them hope to just face the next week. But every time you give them hope, they are always disappointed. You know, they are always disappointed. Always disappointed. Well, there's a brother who came to me at one time and he said, the point at which things are, now I feel like I'm tempted even to steal. You know, even though I'm not a thief, but I'm tempted to steal because the pressure is too much. You know, that is what is happening. But tell me what you think, especially if you are Kenyan. Please tell me what you think about the condition and the situations on the ground, so that we can actually be able to understand what exactly is happening. And as we are preparing ourselves, we need to actually prepare ourselves well, so that when it comes 2027, we know what to do. You know what to do. Tell me what exactly is happening here. Tell me what exactly is happening. Otherwise, thank you very much. God bless you. Looking forward to see you again next time. Thank you.